All right, so this is lesson 15 of our workbook. We are going to go over the solution method. So we really started the solution method in lesson 14, but here it gets a little bit more complex. So we're going to have different types of practice problems. So here, this is workbook page 217, where you will see this problem number 1. All right, so here again, we're solving this system of linear equations. We are going to be substituting, but unlike what we saw yesterday, we don't have anything that's the same. So yesterday, we might have had an equation that looked like this, where we had this 2y and this 2y, and we can substitute from there. But of course, today we do not have that. Luckily, though, we do have one equation that is written in slope-intercept form, so that makes this work a little bit easier. So the second equation here is written in slope-intercept form, which gives us the equation in the form of y equals. Now we can substitute whatever this y equals, into the y for the first equation, which is where our do now comes in handy. So I'm going to rewrite the top equation, 2, but instead of writing y, I'm writing what y equals. 2 times 4x plus 7. It is important to put this in parentheses because the 2 is being multiplied by the y, by everything that the y is. So it's being multiplied by 4x, it's being multiplied by 7 as well. And then once we have this equation written, we can go through our steps to solving an equation like this. So I am going to start by drawing a line down the middle. My step 2 is the distributive property. So 2 times 4x is 8x, and 2 times 7 is 14. That still equals 6x plus 10. Step 3, I don't have anything on the left or the right that are like terms that I can combine. So I'm going to go ahead to step 4, which says to get all of the variables to one side. It says do the smaller. It doesn't really matter, but I am going to do the smaller. So I'm going to subtract 6x here, subtract 6x here, and I'm left with 2x plus 14 equals 10. Now my goal to get x alone, I'm going to start removing things that are step 5, added or subtracted to or from the x, and that is 14. Leaves me with 2x on the left, and 10 minus 14 is negative 4. My last step, hopefully we're super good at this by now, is to divide both sides by 2 to get that x alone. And I'm left with x equals negative 2. Keeping in mind, our solution is a point. So far, I only have the x coordinate. So I need to determine what the y is. So into either one of these equations, I'm going to put my value for x. That's not letting me erase. So it doesn't matter which equation you choose. I'm going to choose the bottom equation just because I don't have to do any extra math. It's just already going to tell me what y equals. So instead of writing x, I'm going to write negative 2. So y equals 4 times negative 2 plus 7. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8 plus 7 equals y. Y equals negative 8 plus 7 is negative 1. So I end up with a solution of negative 2, negative 1. So we really haven't double checked our solutions yet. So it does say in these directions to check your solution. So when you're going through and checking your solution, we just want to put this point into the equations to make sure that it is correct. So without erasing all of this work over here, I'm going to do my little check. And into the top equation, I have 2 times, instead of y, I have -1 equals 6 times, instead of x, -2 plus 10. I'm running out of room. That says plus 10. Let me do that. Plus 10. So 2 times -1 is -2. 6 times -2 is -12 plus 10. -12 plus 10 is -2, and -2 does equal -2. So check, my solution checks out, right? It works into that equation. Now let me put that back in case for another second. Pause here if you need to write any of this down. All right. The next problem, problem 2, looks a little different. We don't have either one of these equations as x equals or y equals, and nothing is the same. So we really need to turn one of these into y equals. It does not matter which one. I'm just going to pick the one that maybe looks the easiest to put into slope-intercept form. So I'm going to pick the top one. So turning this into slope-intercept form. Okay, pencil. All right, so I'm just going to write it up above. Actually, I'll write it over here. So x plus 2y equals 2. I want to get my y alone. Remember getting that into slope-intercept form. 2y equals -x plus 2, dividing by 2, dividing everything on this side by 2. Y equals -1/2 x plus 1. Be careful, 2 divided by 2 is not 0, so we do have plus 1. So now I have this top equation in slope-intercept form. Let me just double check my work. Subtract an x. Yep, divide by 2. Okay, that looks good. All right, so going on from here, now that I have one of those equations in slope-intercept form, I can go ahead and substitute that equation into the other one. And again, there are multiple ways to do this. You could have put one of the equations to be x equals, it doesn't really matter. Like if I wanted to do a little bit less work, technically, I could have just made this one x equals something. So it doesn't really matter. So this is just the way I'm choosing to do it. Maybe after this, I'll show you another way. All right, so again, I'm going to substitute this equation I just wrote into, I'm going to substitute this in for y into the second equation in order to start coming up with my solution. So I have 5x. Hold on, let me just move this up a little. All right. I think my Apple Pencil is actually dying. 5x plus, but instead of writing y, I'm writing -1/2 x plus 1 equals 10. All right, so going on and solving this. Step 1, I'm going to draw a line down the middle. Step 2, I don't really have any parentheses that I need to deal with, nothing to distribute. But step 3, I do have these like terms that I need to combine. So 5x, really essentially minus 1/2 x, would give me 4.5 x plus 1 equals 10. Remember now, my goal is to get x alone. So hopefully we're really good at this. I'm going to subtract 1. I'm going to subtract 1. That leaves me with 4.5 x equals 9. Hopefully we're immediately thinking this is 2, right? Now I'm going to divide both sides by 4.5. Divide by 4.5. X equals 2, right? Because 4.5 goes into 9 2 times. Again, going back, I need to figure out what my y is, because so far for my solution, which I guess I'll just kind of write over here, I don't know. So far I only have my x value. So I need to put that into the equation, either 1, and solve to figure out what y is. I'll just place it into this one. So instead of writing x, I'm going to write 2 plus 2y equals 2. Subtract 2, subtract 2, 2y equals 0. Again, the goal is to get y alone. Divide by 2, divide by 2, y equals 0. It is okay to have 0 as a numerator like this, but if we had 0 as the denominator, we would see that this is undefined. But this is okay as a solution, and then we can go back and check. So go ahead and pause here if you need to write any of this down. I'm going to clear and show you another way to do this problem. You don't have to write it down, but just to show you there are multiple ways to do this. Ah, what did I do? Oh, here we go. So after I started doing the problem, I thought, ew, it could have probably been easier to just turn this equation into solving for x by subtracting 2y. That would have left me with x equals 2 minus 2y. And it's okay if it's x equals and not y equals for this instance. I generally like to do slope-intercept form because I think it's good practice to get into, but we could have also then substituted this in for the x and solved from there. So instead of writing x, I would write 2 minus 2y plus y equals 10. And going through all of this, right, distribute 5 times 2 is 10. 5 times negative 2y is negative 10y plus y equals 10. I want to combine these like terms. So negative 10y plus y would leave me with negative 9y. Goal is to get y alone now. So I'm going to subtract 10 here, subtract 10 here. I'm left with negative 9y equals 0. Divide by negative 9, divide by negative 9. I'm left with y equals 0, which is what we got, right, as our solution for the other one, just in the opposite order. Now I'm going to be searching for my x. So into either one of these equations, instead of writing y, I'm going to write 0. I'll pick the top one. X plus 2 times 0 equals 2. 2 times 0 is 0. X plus 0 equals 2. Obviously, that 0 doesn't matter, so x equals 2. We get the same solution. So it's just another way Again, I like to practice putting equations into slope-intercept form, but it is not necessary. Why don't you try, pause here, and try problem 3. We'll go over it together after. So pause. All right. So problem 3, hopefully you paused, hopefully you tried it out. We'll talk through this one together. Again, there are many, many ways to do it. Um, I might do it a different way than you, and that's okay. I'm trying to think which way I really kind of like because, let's see, I don't want to make it too ugly. All right, so I guess I'm just going to choose this top equation and I'm going to make it x equals something. So again, all I'm doing in my first step is rewriting this equation. So I feel like I'm going to run out of space here pretty quickly. So I'll do that over here and then I might erase it. So 2x plus 6y equals -2. And I'm going to go for getting x alone. So I'm going to subtract 6y. Oop, I didn't mean to write that equal sign. And subtract 6y. That leaves me with 2x equals -2 minus 6y. Divide by 2. Everything on this side gets divided by 2. So x equals -1 minus 3y. So now this is what I'm going to be plugging into the other equation. So I am going to erase this, hopefully. Hopefully it doesn't take too much. Actually, I'm just going to write clear. Let me just jot this equation down on another paper so I don't forget it. All right, let me clear this just because I'm going to run out of space. So again, I have x equals -1 minus 3y. And this is what I'm going to put into this equation for x. And again, you could have done it a different way. So 4 times x, but instead of writing x, -1 minus 3y equals 2y plus 10. So I'm going to just draw my line down the middle. Distribute. 4 times -1 is -4. 4 times -3y is -12y. My goal is to get y alone. Doesn't matter which way I do it. I'm just going to keep the y on the left. So I'm going to add 4, -12y equals 2y plus 14. Oh, I should have moved that 2y over first. Yeah, well, I guess I could do it now. Okay. Kind of did the steps out of order, but it didn't really matter. So I'm going to subtract 2y, -14y equals 14. Now I'm going to divide by -14, divide by -14, y equals -1. Did you guys get the same answer so far? If you started with y, so over here, my solution. So far, I have y equaling -1. All right, now I'm going to put that number into either equation and solve. Usually I like to pick the other equation just in case I made a mistake somewhere along the way. I don't double up all of my mistakes. So I'm going to choose this top equation. 2x plus 6, instead of writing y, I'm going to write -1 equals -2. So 2x plus 6 times -1 is -6. equals -2. Want to get my x alone, so I'm going to add 6 to x equals 4, divide by 2, divide by 2, x equals 2. How did you guys do? All right, you have practice problems on pages 229 and 230.